who will shake up the system? Tell us, everybody who's on the ballot and Trump, who will shake up the system? Donald Trump, 38% of New York voters said would shake up the system. I'm surprised it's that low, because it was not, will he shake it up in a good way? Only 38. More than half of the voters, 52%, said Mamdani would shake up the system. The next highest is Sliwa at 20, Cuomo 16%. And we all know that voters want people in this day and age who will shake up the system. We all know that that's key to Donald Trump's success. So, John, can Cuomo convince people as a brand name politician, as a career politician, can he convince people he wants to shake up the system, or that's just not in the cards?
No, I think it's actually, this is where the rubber meets the road with him, or where either way he slams into a brick wall. Because if his strength is that he has demonstrated competence within the system, then he's not someone who shakes up the system. He's the guy who can make the system work, right? The shaking up the system is the system doesn't work. So that you were able to somehow build the Second Avenue subway, I don't care. I don't care that you can build the Second Avenue subway.
Unless you live on Second Avenue.
No. I'm saying I live in 250 square feet and I'm paying $2,750 a month. That's what I care about, and everything. I don't understand how that's going to get fixed. So Cuomo can't come in and say, "I'm going to shake things up." Like that hurts his message with the people who would want to vote for him. That's where he is in a terrible bind.
Right. David, here's the question. Here's the question that's kind of the mirror image of the one we just talked about, that I think is most revealing of Cuomo's problem. Because again, I think it speaks not just the mood of New York, but the mood of the country. And so the question is, which of the following attributes do you associate with the following candidates? And the attribute was, represents the interests of the elite or oligarchs. Represents the interests of elite or oligarchs. I can't imagine any candidate would want the answer to that to imply to them, right? No one wants to, particularly in the current moment, right? Andrew Cuomo, 40%. Mamdani, 16%. I think if he can't move that number, he can't win, right? And 40% say he represents elites and oligarchs.
I don't think he can move that number too much, at least with what we're projecting the electorate to be. And that's why I keep coming back to the point. He's going to have to expand the electorate with record turnout of people that do not, 40 whatever percent said they're okay with the socialist mayor. Well, that's 40 something percent of this likely electorate. You got to expand past that electorate and hope that you get the ones who are scared of the idea of, New York becoming the next San Francisco, for example, and get out and vote. Those Cuomo's too well known. He's got too much baggage. It's going to be really difficult, and he can't put on that show, in my opinion. He can't go out there and really convince people because it's not who he is. Mamdani is effective because it's who he is. He's saying what he believes, and that's going to be tough to get people to move off of, especially with an election like this.
David, can I ask you, because I think that's a very interesting thing that you've just said, which is that the universe of people that you polled here, if this is the universe of people that actually votes, then Mamdani wins. If, however, the electorate blows out this model through extremely high turnout
among certain groups,
then other things might happen. It just still strikes me that even if you're right about that, unless Sliwa or Cuomo drops, it doesn't matter.
Adams.
I meant Adams, because by the way, this is the other thing, and I think I'm pretty sure about this. There will be a Republican candidate on this ballot. The Republican Party has to have a candidate on the ballot for all kinds of legal, juridical reasons having to do with being on the ballot in the next election.
But the question is, does Cuomo or rich people who want to stop Mamdani spend and message in a way that drives Sliwa down to a record low number for a Republican nominee in a mayoral race, right?
So against de Blasio, right, who I think got 74 and 77% of the vote respectively in 2013 and 2017, the Republicans still got 20 to 22 to 23% of the vote.
They're going to have to drive him. They're going to have to drive him lower because they're going to have to convince people, A, that he's a bad guy by running negative against him, and
Yeah.
B, that a vote for Sliwa is a vote for a socialist. So if you're a Republican, they're
Yeah.
going to say, don't waste your vote on the Republican, because then you're voting
Okay.
for a socialist mayor.
I'm just asking you, based on your lifetime experience following this granularly, a person on the Republican line, even in a city like New York, which has a 6 or 7 to 1 registration advantage for Republicans, is going to get 200 to 300,000 votes. Now, if the electorate's 3 million people, that won't matter that much, right? The electorate is theoretically as large as 4.5 million, right? The turnout has been like 25% in the last 4 elections. But just having a Republican on the line means there's going to be 300,000 votes that are cast for the Republican. And I just think that's whatever the margin is that Mamdani will need, it's right there.
David.
It likely is. And if I'm sitting in, and like we said earlier, it's a little bit more obvious now why Cuomo decided to run as an independent. But if I'm, what we know is going to happen is there's going to be a massive airway war, and that's what the consultants like to do. And they're going to hope that through that they can scare the Republican voters enough to make them not turn out for Sliwa at the numbers that they normally would have. So some attrition there coming over to the independent, your Cuomo. And then they're going to hope they're going to, hey, I'm sure the consultants are just saying, hey, we didn't have enough time. We didn't know this was going to happen so quick with Mamdani. With a little bit of time, we can he's at his high water mark. We're going to beat him down, and he's going to suffer some attrition too. That's not going to be enough, though. And you're going to need a record turnout like we talked about. And what I would, through my history of being in these rooms and working with consultants as the pollster, they don't like to do the hard work. They don't want to get people, Hispanic speaking people on the ground, knocking on doors, talking to them, like building relationships. Yep. They're not going to go into the Hindu communities where they could, there's 200,000+ Hindus that if you turn them out to vote, they're going to vote for Cuomo, but they're not going to get into these communities and really start to do the hard work.
And if they don't do it, Mamdani will win, is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Lastly, for both of you, if you were presenting this data, New York's obviously its own beast, but if you're presenting this data to a Republican candidate in Michigan or to the Republican senatorial campaign committee or the Democrats, what are the national lessons, David, that you take from this?
Well, that is a good question. I would say that the big thing I would consider about this, because especially if you're running for a statewide office, right? If you're running for a statewide office, the more votes you can get out of the cities, or the less the yes, the more votes you can get out of the cities, the better, right? And the cities do have this type of psychologist, type of personality. They're much more likely to engage with this socialist, but populist type of message. And I'd say, learn from how he campaigned in the cities and see what you can do from the standpoint of your candidate and your message in there, because that's an area that people avoid, Republican candidates avoid like crazy. They just don't spend any money there, but there is a message people are willing to listen to and change their behavior on.
Yeah. John, my takeaway, and again, we sort of touched on this. Go ahead.
I was just going to say that the most striking detail to me, as I told you in the poll, in the crosstabs, is that among the people that David polled, 73% of them are childless. So that's an astonishing number. I don't know that I've ever seen such a number in a poll ever. And I don't think that is reflective of the rest of the country. And I think what you're seeing is a political portrait of this democratic, increasingly childless world that is therefore disconnected from a lot of the political issues that most people outside of places like New York are connected to, like how are the schools? What are the property taxes that I have to pay to get X, Y, or Z out of the schools? Crime, by the way, much more an issue for families that even if you live in an unsafe place than for the childless. And I'm looking at this and I'm saying, if I am a Republican outside New York City, I am leaning into family. I am leaning into what it's like for two earner couples and what it's like at schools and what it's like to the cost of living issues that affect families, because this world of childlessness is a world that is much more receptive to things like socialism than the world of people who are like trying to get ahead and make more money and, you know, like rise on the socioeconomic ladder.
100%. And that's my national lesson from this poll above all else, which is this electorate represents some of the changes and trends that are taking place. And that's the explanation of why a socialist may end up being a mayor of this city. David Burrell, thank you for the poll.
Just really quickly, just one more point to that is I think the biggest lessons for the political strategists on the Republican side and the issues you're saying will probably come when they watch what happens and watch how the tactics that Cuomo, Adams, whoever uses works and how it changes the electorates, gets people to turn out at different rates potentially in this area, with the, you know, the obvious caveat of what y'all just said, that this is not representative of a lot of the other electorate. It's a very unique scenario.